not online?
No. Vabbè. And the slides of Carlota.
Já botou slide.
Carlota. Slides. Huh?
Can be in this down area. To people.
Hello, everyone. We're starting. Thanks for coming. If people outside want to come, we are starting. I guess they will come when we start discussing and fighting. It's gonna be nice. No, joking. So we start this panel. We are part of the Young Researchers of the Complete System Society. We organize this panel on creativity in academia. But it's not just for the young researchers, it's for everyone, I think. We all have different views on what is creativity and how we deal with it and all of that, but that's for later. And so we're gonna have 4 panelists, but first we start with 2 very short talks to introduce creativity by Cristina and then Hiroki. Carlota, sorry. So we're going to start with Carlota. Carlota Torrens is a professor in the Instituto Nacional de Educación Física de Catalunya in Spain. And she teaches and works with subjects related to body expression and dance. And also written a very nice book, but no spoiler about that. I think you're going to talk about that book. And so yeah, I give you the spotlight, and yes, perfect. I was looking for the slides. Perfect. Let's give it all to Carlota. Yeah. As you wish, maybe. As you wish. Maybe.
Panelists, generally, if you want, you can sit up there. Unless you really like sitting here. Okay.
Start. Well, okay. Well, thank you very much for inviting me to this meeting. Do you want me to go to the stage? I go to the stage. I'm very bad with these things. Okay. Well, so when I was surprised for the invitation, but I think it's a very nice topic to talk about. I'm a researcher on creativity, but in sport and in dance, not in the academia. So then I had to think a little bit, well, what I can say, about this topic. And well, Ricardo's your name. He has asked now, what's academia? No, I thought the same. Well, but what's academia? So I said, well, I suppose academia is our job, what we do in our job. So I thought in my job and what I do in my job. And I think all the things that I do is really very creative. Research, the first slide is the first picture is of one research. We have to think in a name, and a design of the research, and afterwards we have to communicate the results. So it's a creative job. When we teach, I'm teaching with my students, and I have to design a session, and it's a creative product that if you want to do an interesting session, you have to really something very creative. I do also with my students dance performances. Obviously, this is creative. I have to organize seminars or conferences, and also to organize something like this is something that you have to be creative if you want that it is interesting for the people. And moreover, I have with the teachers of my area, I have a dance company, so I consider also part of my job. So yes, it is a creative job. Our job, I think, is really creative. And then I asked to our dear ChatGPT, what does he think? So it thinks about creativity in academia. And as always, ChatGPT answers in a so polite way and so perfect written and so similar to what academia asks us to do, that I think in some years, in very few years, no, if now it's doing this in very few years, if academia asks us to communicate like that, I think academics are really with the water up to the neck. We won't be necessary to communicate our knowledge to the others, because then artificial intelligence will do it better than us. At least in English, I'm sure ChatGPT does it better than me. If it's in Spanish or in Catalan, no, but in English, now at the moment, ChatGPT does it better than me. So at the same time, well, this is journals now ask us for very restricted rules to write, the rules that follows this artificial intelligence. But at the same time, I think that when there are some limitations, it can be also interesting to be creative. No, in fact, this is one of the topics that I make my research about this creativity paradox, no? Because in the theories that I use, motor control is proposed that the use of constraints, it goes to a convergent answer, a little bit as the journals ask to us, not to write in a very convergent way. Every of us, we have to write in the same way and communicate in the same way and speak in a conference in the same way. But at the same time in art, it's very common to use some limitations to be, in fact, more creative. Because then you have to go out of your usual way to do the things, and then you can be more creative in that. Because always you have an infinite number of possibilities to answer. Even if you think that you have a small space to answer, always you have infinite numbers for answers. But I think this is this shape of inverted U. It means that if you don't have any constraint, any limitation, we tend to repeat our usual behavior, the behavior that we always do. Because if you don't have any limitations, the easy thing is to do what you always do, okay? So some limitations, it's good to be more creative. But if you have many limitations, then again, you go to the conversion answer. When you don't have any limitation, you have the white, la hoja en blanco, ¿cómo se dice in English? The white paper, no? It's like you have so many possibilities to do that it's too much. But, for instance, in the lockdown, no? It was so many limitations that it was impossible to be creative, no? That things that people say, we will be better after this, and well, these things that it didn't happen because it was too much limited. And I think it's a little bit what happens in academia, no? That really we have too many limitations to communicate. So I just wanted to explain you two experiences that I use, or I have used, to try to be more creative in my job. One is related specifically with my area, with movement, and the other is more related with something that you also do, okay, that is writing. So the first is with movement. I organize every year a performance with my students for commemorating the 8th of March, the Day of the Women. In very focused, the performance very focused in sport, because it's my area. I don't know if you know that now in Spain is very popular what has happened with football, with feminine football, and we live it every day, this discrimination to women in sport. So I propose them to do a performance, and this topic is well, a constraint, no limitation. We are going to talk about women. But for instance, in one of the performances, we asked to athletes to explain what they consider or what real experiences about their something that they have lived as a discrimination, being a woman in sport. And with these audios, my students had to dance these audios. And then we showed this to the community, to the academical community. And I think it is a very different way to communicate, to discuss, to something, to the topic, using another thing different than words, using words, but movement. And then we invited the people to go to the stage and talk also, and it happened at something very different because we connected with the hearts of the people. So there's his an example. I don't know if it's working. No. Can you put the video? Hi. Sorry? The words are athletes, female athletes, talking about their experience. No, it's the students created, inspired in the words. You can use contact dance or another kind of dance.
Doncs jo recordo en una marxa d'aquí de les Terres, de BTT, doncs que recordo que no era una marxa no competitiva, on participava totes les categories, i bé, per finalitzar la carrera, doncs la sorpresa va ser que van anomenar guanyadors als 3 primers nois, tot i no ser competitiva.
And the other experience I want to spend is one of writing. As I have told you, for me, it's a little bit boring to write papers in the way that academics ask us to write. And I wanted to do something different. And then I thought I could find a limitation to be inspired. So, well, this singer was my limitation. I don't know if you know him. In South America and Spain, he's very famous. He's Jorge Drexler. He won an Oscar in 2004, and he has won many Latin Grammys. And his songs are written in Spanish, and he talks sometimes using concepts of complex systems, and also he talks also about creativity in these terms, that limitations work in him when creating. And another third important thing is that I am in love with this man, so it was inspiring to think in him while I was writing. So then I wrote a book. Well, this book, I'm here. This is the book, no? A mi musa la invento yo. It means I invent my muse. And what I'm talking here is the works that I have done about creativity and research, but proposing the same that I propose, I use it for writing it. So as I propose that some limitations can be interesting, I put the limit of each chapter has hidden a song of this singer. So the title of the chapter is the title of the song, and the song is hidden in the chapter. So the readers can try to find the sentences of the song or not. They can read it as they want. But for me, it was very interesting to write it in this way because then I have to explain things that usually I don't explain. Because, for instance, if the song is a love song, I had to explain love things in the capture. So then I had to put examples very different as the examples that I explain in my papers or even in class. I had to force my mind to go out and also to try to hide the sentences. He writes very, very well, this singer. So I had to write in a different way in order that their sentences are hidden in the captures. So, well, this is an example of try to go out of this way of writing. But I have to confess that I'm forgetting the position of professor. These books, these performances, or whatever didn't count anything in my curriculum. So forgetting the position of professor, the only thing that the academia took into account was the papers in JCR. So, well, we are in this position at this moment. And yes, I think that academia is killing creativity in this sense, because you are forced to do the things all in the same way, in a very conventional way. But at the same time, I think that creativity is the only thing that can save us, because if not, artificial intelligence will do our job. So we have to change things. Thank you. Well, I give you.
Thanks a lot, Carlota. And now we have Yrccs. Yrccs Sayama is a professor in system science in the Birmingham University in New York.
Not the Birmingham, Binghamton.
I did
Birmingham
my
will be
PhD
UK.
in England, so yeah, I know. Sorry about that.
It's all right.
So yeah, he has extensive experience in teaching and research in many parts of complex systems. And so yes, so we have the slides, and
Well, I have only 4 slides.
it's okay. It's okay.
Yeah.
You can tell your story about creativity.
Oh, okay. Then I
You have to go necessarily.
So anyway, so thank you very much for
Give
having
it
me.
up for Yrccs.
Yeah, so I have only 4 slides, and I don't really study much about the creativity. I don't know why I was invited here, but probably because I used to work on some kind of educational outreach. Like 10 years ago, I was working on NetSci Ed, NetSci, literature. So we worked a lot with teachers and students, and also I have been working with the business school faculty members to conduct experiments of the human decision-making process. So I'm going to just show you 2 recent examples, maybe not recent, 2 human subject experimental results. And then I'm going to provide this kind of food of thought so that you can start thinking about what the creativity really is. Yeah, here you go. So here's one experiment we did about nearly 10 years ago. So here you see 2 scripts. Oh, this is really nice, although a little bit time delay. So we conduct a human subject experiment by bringing a bunch of students, and then depending on the condition, we gave this condition to a certain group of teams, and gave this instruction to another group of teams, and then the third one is control. We didn't do anything. So basically, you can read it, but the first one, critical condition, sounds like it's a very standard, very conservative engineering type of discipline, right? So you have to be very non-creative. You have to be very, very critical, test everything. You should use this, standards. Never be creative. So that's the kind of instruction we gave. Second one, I think many people actually like most. It's more like what Steve Jobs would say, right? Like promote your creativity, be crazy, go nuts, etc. So we conducted some kind of design tasks in those 3 different conditions. We got these results. And I hide the condition here, so you can guess. The plot on the left is a number of ideas generated per team, okay? One condition is very high. You can guess which one. The second plot shows actual quality of ideas. So this quality is evaluated by third party So people who are not involved in experiments. An interesting profile. Can you make a guess which one is creative team? You can make a guess. Yeah, this one, right? In the middle? Yeah, how about this one? Quality, yeah. This one? Or this one? Yeah. Yeah, go ahead. Yeah. Third one. Oh, okay, so you think this is the creative team? Based on your experience? Yeah, so sorry, so this is not really so surprising. So as you said, both of them, they're control, creative, critical, control, creative, critical. So this actually tells you something very interesting about the control group. We were actually quite surprised. So obviously, the creative teams were told to be very crazy, so they actually kept lots of designs, ideas. And yet, if you look at the quality achieved by each team, being creative did not really achieve any better ideas. So the control group, which were in the complete freedom, they were not instructed in any way by our experimenters. So they actually achieved almost as good as in terms of performance at a very, very efficient way. They produced just a few ideas, and then their idea is actually one of the best. And obviously, critically behaving team turned out to be very, very inactive, and their performance actually turned out to be very low. Because in this particular task, we requested them to create something. So if you are to create something, being critical is obviously not so good. Right? That's one example. Next experiment. This is a more recent one. We conducted an online social network kind of experiment, and the two conditions here. In one condition, people are fully connected to each other, so they can see each other's ideas online, like a Twitter-like timeline. The other condition, each person is very, very limited in terms of the connectivity. You only see maybe 4 other neighbors' ideas, nothing else. Right? And then we conducted a similar design task, and we get a performance measurement like this. 2 conditions, fully connected or sparsely connected. The first plot shows the number of ideas generated. There are no differences between those 2 networks, which one is which. Second one is interesting. So average distance between the generated ideas. So one condition produced much more diverse ideas than the other one. Which network was it? You can make a guess. And the third and fourth ones are not statistically significant because we ran only a handful of sessions, but still, given the sample size so small, p-value is not so bad, like a 0.11 and 0.057, it's almost there. So in terms of the actual utility, how good idea was and how idea was good on average, in both cases, highest and average, one of the conditions is actually better. Can you make a guess which network was actually doing better job? Sorry? Sparse. Why? You are correct. So the sparse network turns out to be much more creative than the fully connected network. This is actually almost kind of against what we usually believe and hear from media. Connectivity, conversations, they are all inspiring your creativity, and this experiment tells you that it's not quite true. Although, there's a backstory here. We also conducted a survey. How happy were you in the session? Almost always, the folks who participated in the sparse network, they are so frustrated. Yeah, I don't like it, because nobody actually does the job. We saw very, very few ideas. They always complained about the lack of activities, and they are not so sure about their performance. And compared to that, people who participate in a fully connected network, they're so happy. Every time they log in, there's so many ideas. Oh, this is great. We are achieving the great thing together. And the reality is the opposite. So this is kind of an interesting story about creativity. And I think a couple of messages I'm going to take from here is that the idea of creativity can be multidimensional, right? It can be about just difference from the existing ideas. Or could be about how to come up with good ideas in the most efficient way. So you can decompose different pieces of creativity by thinking about what you want to achieve, right? And also, creativity can be the collective phenomena, not necessarily about yourself. Maybe you don't really need to change. Maybe it's that environment you are in that has to change so that you can be more creative. Or maybe your team can be creative altogether. So this is kind of complexity science message, right? It can be an emergent property of the collective. And finally, this is my favorite thing, because I came from Japan. Biologically, one of my grandfather was a Zen Buddhist monk, although I'm not really doing any religious stuff. In Zen, you may have some kind of puzzling stuff. If you want to get this, don't, right? Because if you seek something, it will escape away. If you give up and then just accept what you are, you just behave naturally, happiness, wealth, whatever, may come to you. So creativity might be something like that. Don't try to be overly creative if you want to be creative. So those are kind of mixed message I'm going to give. And that's it. Thank you.
Thank you. So I guess now, as a panelist, we can go up. Yes, and then maybe
you are one of the panelists. Yeah. Is there a mic for Hiroki? No. Is it two mics? Okay.
So you have that mic up there, and we have one down here.
Okay. I hope I will not make any more mistakes of names or cities. Let's start from Riccardo, because I know I'm also Italian. Riccardo Gallotti is actually, I wrote some things here just to remember. He's the head of the Complex Human Behavior Lab. In fact, his main research topic is about human behavior. And he's in the Fondazione Bruno Kessler in Trento. So actually, just to start to the panel discussion, maybe I make a question to you and to Cristina to start the conversation. Maybe we open the discussion to your questions. So, Riccardo, I don't know, what is creativity for you in general? Like, I don't know, because before we start,
Like, I listen a lot normally, and I speak even much. But what Hiroki knows, your name is Camilla? No? Carlotta, sorry. Yeah, they remind me of a lot of things that I learned when I was at the university, mostly because I was in a sort of artistic environment. Even if I studied physics, I did a lot of theater. I did the improvisational theater, and my housemate was a director. And when you have to work in something like creating a script, you need both sides of what Hiroki showed. You should be both critical and creative. And what they do is that they were, in this case, a team of two. One was in charge of the creation, so you build the stuff, and the other was in charge of disrupting. So one was free of having all the ideas, and the other would destroy. And then you pass to the other, and you change the. So having both of them in a team is why you have an advisor. So you can be free of being creative, and someone will try to destroy whatever you are trying to do. It's not for your damage, it's just because your time is limited, and this is part of the creative process. And the other side, on the fact of having done improvisation, we use the limitation as part of the creative process in theater. There is, of course, the yes and you should interact with other people, but most of the exercises were exercises of style. Like you have a glass, what you can do with a glass? Everything you can do with a glass. No, this I already saw, so do something different. So is the way of creating is always standing for something that limits you, because if not, you have infinite possibilities, and you will be just blocked in the network of infinite connection that you show us. So I see something like this in theater and in other forms of art, and I believe this is how we should also work. Like creativity is the process of getting new ideas, and is often not the process of a single person. is an interaction between people. And for me, COVID wasn't a limiting creativity because we were stuck, but because we couldn't really interact at the coffee machine. I saw a lot of people, productivity actually raised during COVID, but papers were more trivial because there was only one main author working on this stuff, who was receiving comments, but without with the random interaction that you normally have. So I work in complexity and social systems, the social part of creativity is also very important.
Thank you, Riccardo. And then also we have Christina Masoler. We have been all, I hope, to her talk yesterday, but for everyone who doesn't know her, she's an associate professor in the physics department in the Universitat Politècnica de Catalunya. So yeah, her work is very interdisciplinary, at least in my opinion. So I don't know, maybe you have some words to add on creativity and maybe interdisciplinary work.
Okay. Thanks for inviting me here. I really have no idea what I'm doing here. But anyway, I'm going to pick up on what Carlota said about academia killing creativity. And I really love to be controversial. So I want to go on exactly the opposite direction. I think when they put obstacles, when they make your life hard, the harder it is, the more you are pushed to be creative, because you are pushed to find innovative solutions. And I think that is very important to think. It's very important to motivate, it triggers creativity. And that's why I think sometimes that in developing countries, in China, in India, in Brazil, in Uruguay, I'm from Uruguay, and your favorite singer is actually from my home country. And, just by the way, Uruguay won yesterday against Brazil. So, no, I think difficult situations, when we have very difficult situations, we are forced to be creative, okay? We are forced to explore new things, to do different things, and that's what academia is doing to all of us. So it's doing it a big favor. And I go in connection to you too, because you mentioned the Buddhists. And the Buddhists have this theory. The obstacles are there for you to learn, right? For you to become better. So that's one of the things I wanted to say. And I think my research profile is just maybe too broad, because from photonics to neuroscience to climate to data analysis to God knows what, social sciences I'm starting to do a little bit. So I think creativity is also related to being fascinated with a lot of things. And the key word is the fascination. You really need to have this passion to look for solutions, to go out of your comfort zone. That's not that easy. And well, I'll finish here at the moment.
Okay, now I will ask a general question for all four of you. So I'm curious, how do you decide when to follow current scientific trends versus when to go for something entirely new and creative? When do you decide to follow current scientific trends, so things that people are researching right now, versus when do you do something completely new of your own, new and creative?
Can I answer? So my answer is you always do both, all the time. Yeah, and of course you need to allocate time because time is finite, but because this is about creativity in academia, not necessarily creativity in research only. So you need to survive, right? And we have a Twitter conversation, academia is killing creativity. I absolutely agree. But you have to pay your bills. You have to support your family and kids. So that means you have to meet the requirements coming from administration, all kinds of stuff, which is not really creative. And then you need to have the mental capacity and the power and the inspiration, as Christina mentioned, to keep doing something that you are passionate about simultaneously with meeting the requirement. So there's not really a question about when. It's always doing this.
Similarly, like I would diversify the portfolio, no? Like creativity is a risk, while following the trend is more safe, especially if you are at one point funded by that very trend. And so you should be doing both, because if you keep on doing only the trend, you will fall off behind. Because you should be the one that have the new idea before the others if you want to win the next project even, or to be really relevant for the community. So like, we should mix up, and you should also understand when is the time. For instance, in my group, we normally do the weird stuff with students, master students, because they don't have really to deliver for a project. So they can do the weirder stuff, while perhaps a postdoc then has to find the next postdoc is better if it can deliver something that is more sure. So you should decide where to place the risk within the group, and also when there is something that you just burn for doing it, and you know that if you don't do it, you will not keep on with the other research, and so you just do that, because motivation is the key of our life. Like, we are self-driven in our research, in our work. And at one point, if you get bored, you don't produce. So if at one point you have an idea and this is the only thing you can think at the morning, you have to do that. So.
Well, I was going to say this, the last thing that you have said. My criteria is that I have to enjoy it and like it, and that's my criteria. And can be something that is more fancy, or something that I have an idea and I want to do that, or someone who I like is researching in something, like I can collaborate with that person, and then I can enjoy because I like to work with that person, or student wants to do something and I help them. It's in them different ways, but I think the common thing is that I have to like what I'm doing and enjoying it. If not, I will stop to do it, so it's not efficient.
So I think we have moments of creativity, but we are not creative all the time. So most of the time we are doing some boring things that academia, but it's part of the process. I mean, we cannot be sharp, super sharp all the time. And I'm not an expert at all on creativity, but I spent some time reading articles today for creativity, and I found one that I decided to share in the group with the app. I don't know if somebody of you saw it, but it's the science of creativity. If you go, and one of the things is do something new. And this article says creativity can be trained. We can all become more, if we want to train to be more creative, we can. And we have to pay all the time attention on this. It's good to do routine and have our usual way of doing things, but it's also very important to try to do something new. So I decided, I'm going to share this article in this app. I don't know, I never used it before. And I think it's a way of training to be creative, to try to every day do something new.
I take the mic because I wanted mostly to pass it to her, because I also know that physical activity stimulates creativity in a very direct way. I have another housemate in the same house was a psychologist, and she used tapping as a way of solving mental problems because it links the right and left part of the brain. And for instance, when I'm blocked by the white page and I don't know what to write, I do juggling. So, and many people have inspiration during showers or when they do something that is a movement, is repetitive, you can walk. So there is a part of your body that is actually active when you try to be creative. Maybe you can add something to comment?
Well, there are experiments that show this, that when walking is better than sitting to have ideas. So there are experiments in this way. Probably it's because you are not, when you are walking around, you are not thinking in the problem. Now, it seems that the solution comes when you are not thinking in that problem. It emerges, the solution, when you are thinking in other things. So spontaneously emerge ideas. So probably comes from this phenomena.
So to build on this, what are other methods that you use to stimulate creativity, all of you?
Well, I have now a tip, to put some limitations. It was not so contradictory what of you have told, Cristina. Do you have say, are you going to say the contrary than me?
I think academia is not killing creativity. In the opposite, it's putting us pressure to be creative. And that's the only way it's pushing us to be creative. And of course, we are creative, and we can do much better, and we are, for sure, because otherwise we wouldn't be here.
Okay, I think, well, there are some studies that stress is not good for creativity. This is also, there is a little bit of controversy on this, but I think stress is not good for creativity. I don't like, in fact, this word of the zone of comfort, or to be out of the zone of comfort, because I think comfort is needed, but maybe not comfort in the sense of being rich. Comfort and the meaning of feeling in a way that you feel in confidence, for instance, with the people that you are. Or now sometimes you prefer to be in your country, even it's a country poor and you don't have money to do research or something, but you are more safe there with your friends, with your family, and you prefer to live and to research there because you have that comfort. You know that you feel safe there. And this safety thing, it's important to be creative. If you don't have money, this is not so important. Can be good for being creative, no? But I think a comfort, you need a comfort. I think, well, there is some research in this sense that the stress or to put some time not very time, this is not good for creativity. You need some time, you need some comfort in this sense.
I again borrow from theater, and is to not judge too early. The judgment is what interrupts all the creative flow. And so normally in any improvisation, the first training is not to judge, not to stop, not to work, see what you're doing, see what you're, from a critical point, is keeping being creative without judgment. And for this, I basically have two notebooks. One is a notebook of the good idea, and the other is the crazy idea. That can be like something very weird, but even the notebook of the crazy ideas, I grow them. Like if I see a paper, a data set, something, I just add a note. This can be something that can work, and a crazy idea can become a good idea after a while. But there is interrupted judgment, and the other thing normally is once you try to do something, is the rule of fail faster. So you have to try your stuff in a critical way so that you can understand very quickly if what you're doing is complete bullshit. So this allow you for trying more stuff.
Okay. I guess how to hack your brain really depends on your way of thinking. Some people actually really like drawing. It doesn't work at all for me. I'm terrible about drawing. And then if I put my idea to writing, drawing, it actually kills my creativity. So again, this really depends on each one of you. So you should actually learn about yourself. In what kind of situation you actually came up with aha moment. So you can accumulate those hacking texts, right? Because we have only hardware here. Maybe some glass of quality beer. That always works for me. And the other times I work, just for me, is when I am completely blank, not thinking at all, like usually cooking or dishing, vacuuming and doing errand. Yeah. So those times I don't really think anything. That's when my brain starts exploring a bunch of stuff. But again, this is really up to each one of you. So you need to learn how to use your brain in the most creative way.
Maybe if someone in the audience has a comment or a question or want to join the discussion. We have 2 microphones, fortunately.
Yeah, so I wanted briefly to come back to this previous question, like when to do something completely new or when to follow like some existing idea. And I think that the process in science is like a pyramid system. So you have some key paper, which then, some other papers kind of modify, and you have like a cascade of papers, and usually only at the end you realize that there was a key paper. And I think our goal should be to write such a key paper because we want to make some impact into science. And so we cannot always, be like the 100th paper on a topic because then we have no impact, And so I think this is kind of very important because we want to have some breakthrough, We don't want to do incremental. And what I think is really key, and I want to throw in a new word here in the discussion, is curiosity. I think it's really helpful to think, okay, or to be just curious. You know, what is interesting? So what do I want to know? So that just a new concept.
For sure.
Yeah, because you know you are from the dance, so we do the opposite side always. Actually, I think totally opposite from you, and I think like this is like one of the biggest errors of science. I don't think I don't believe in great ideas. I don't believe in great achievements. My dad is a scientist, normal scientist, and the best idea he had, it's in the books. It was with mitochondrial whatever, and it was because he fell asleep, as all the great ideas. So I don't believe it's this idea of pyramidal. I think we should think of science as a map. You know, in the idea of, we are always trying to get who is the best scientist. And science is not about who is the best science. The scientist is more about team working, like how the knowledge can, like getting, you know, together. Not always, like always in the sense, you know, because we have Nobel Prize and so on. So I think it's like this idea of where life begins. No, that was my idea. Then I studied Kaufman and believe, no, that's no beginning of life. So that's the opposite, I think. Maybe it's creativity is not about like the best. It's more about like how can I develop and get increased knowledge from a different point of view. Do you understand what I mean? Like I got a little bit confused.
In this case, I want to cite Mason Porter, that I don't know anyone you know, for sure you know Mason Porter. Yeah, Mason once told me like that I should do the science that only I can do, not the science that other people would. Because there will be always other people doing the paper that everybody can do, but there are a few papers that is only me that can do it, and this is what I have to do. So to concentrate your creativity in what is the idea that is built around your personality, your expertise, your interest. So this is what I learned from him.
I want to say something, sorry. I have seen very successful scientists that I don't think they are creative at all, okay? And I have seen very creative people which have the creativity, and in science they're not that interested, they're not that motivated. So you can be creative on really stupid things or things that you care about, you know. You know, you can be in your studio painting or cooking pasta, all these can be also creative, and then in that sense, academia is obviously your job, no? But, or you can try to be a creative everywhere, you know? You are creative, whatever you do, you're doing it with trying to do new things all the time, in all ambits. Or focus your creativity in academia, and then you get home, turn on the TV, spend the night there, and that's it. Go to bed next day. No, so I think we are all contradictory in some sense. It's very difficult to be authentic, creative, and I think a genius was like Picasso. You think, well, this Picasso, God knows how many works he did, equivalent to papers for us, no? But there's people that have like, 200 papers, God knows, but that doesn't mean they are creative, right? So it's very, you really need to think very carefully about what it really means to be creative.
Yeah. So I wanted to add one more comments about those two dichotomy looking things. I think there's a middle ground. If you start something really new instead of following it, you know, you will always become the top of the pyramid, no matter how small it is. And it's guaranteed, because you have never read anything and you just started a new thing, you have the fulfillment internally. I know I am the first person who did this, and I don't really care how big that pyramid is going to grow. It's someone else's decision. But I'm so proud because I'm the top. If you follow someone's work, Which is, by the way, that's a great thing. You want to get the grant. Grant is always given to the incremental studies, not the creative ones. But if you start following someone, you know from the beginning you are already behind someone else. So it's a fundamental difference. So you can try starting something new, and then you already have the success, right? So who knows? You may not get cited, and then you may die, but you know that you are the first one. So you will die happily. And I'm that kind of person, yeah.
Yeah, also to comment on this, was also during the warm-up that we did Friday and Saturday, there was also a talk about from José Garcia, and it was talking about this problem of interdisciplinarity, or the way, like you see, for example, a PhD or a paper is just, you imagine knowledge, maybe it's a sphere, and then you want to do a bit more of the sphere. But then in reality, the knowledge is a network, and you only know just some nodes and some links that you've explored in your career, and then that's your knowledge. And you can only explore like adjacent possibilities, these things that are one step away. So it makes sense what you were saying before, like you need to do like small steps that maybe build on something that you've done. And then at some point, maybe you're far away from others people, and then that thing is very creative in a sense, but just because it's different from what the others they've done, because their network is different. Also, I want to introduce another topic, is about like when you speak with other people, and then you make new links in this network that you have in your mind, because you say, I know this part of the knowledge space, in a sense, you know this part, and then we are connecting and we are creating so many links that didn't even exist. But just before, two people with those knowledge never talked before about those things, and so you're creating new links, and that's also creative. So, I don't know.
On the interaction, is my interest and is my life, because I can exactly trace the moment where basically my career became my career. In a little conference in Zurich where I met a girl that was doing a PhD at the same year of me, and she has some data that inspired me an idea. The idea was completely wrong, but starting working with her on this, and I got an idea different from that only because my housemate was reading a paper and it was in the toilet, and I read this paper in the toilet, and I say, yeah, gotcha, this is what is explaining the data. And now I'm working on human behavior just because of these two random encounters. This one with Jelena, that we are still working with Jelena after 10 years, and this random paper that was in the toilet because my housemate was reading it. So,
if you read the article I share, it talks about the Eureka moment. The Eureka moment, oh yeah. And then it also says, be aware of the many wrong Eureka moment. So there is one really fast creativity moment in which you say, Eureka, I found this idea, but you have to be very aware that it might be complete.
But instead of being in the bath like Archimedes, I was in the toilet sitting.
Well, not only that this is of the Eureka moment, no, I think it was Picasso, no, that said that the creativity has to find you working, no. So the Eurekas come sometimes, but you have to work on that, no. When you are walking and an idea comes to your mind, it's because before you have worked a lot and have learned a lot about, have read a lot about that, and then that idea can come mixing what you have read, what you have experienced, what you have done, and then that idea emerge. But obviously, you have to be an expert for be creative. This is one of the characteristics of creativity. You have to be an expert of something for being able to be creative. So it's everybody can be a creative person, but if you want to be creative in a domain, a specific domain, you have to be an expert in that domain. But obviously, we are creative because life is creative. Humans are creative because you need creativity to grow up.
We have one question from the audience.
I just add a keyword that is serendipity. I believe is the one that is summing up this, what you just said.
I feel I have been creative in many fields in which I'm not expert at all. I just wanted to clarify that, because otherwise I should be an expert in climate, in neuroscience, and I think you can always contribute, even without being an expert. I think if you are an expert, maybe you already think of all the things. This is not, you already see all those barriers. If you sometimes come with fresh eyes, you're not aware of all those problems, and then you go ahead and you think, oh, I'm gonna try this, it happened to me on the climate system. I started working on climate just by chance, like your Eureka moment, because I went to Uruguay to give a talk on neuroscience. Okay, we were studying Yrccs signals, which I wasn't an expert at all either, right? But I was studying that at that time. And then a friend of mine, meteorologist, said, oh, well, we can use these techniques to study climate data, because if you record signals from different parts of your brain, then we do the same, recording the temperature in different parts of the Earth. So we can do correlations, get networks, and that was 15 years ago when a few people, Shlomo and Jürgen, were working on climate networks, but nobody else. And it was like, I don't know anything about this, but yeah, we can give it a go. And no, I wasn't working, I wasn't alone, for sure. That's part of the creative process. I think to connect things that are very distant, but very distant. I think that's part of the...
Yeah, I wanted to ask a question perhaps to all the panel. I was very inspired for your idea that constraints might be a way to unleash creativity as opposed to, and in art, besides the example of your book, there are all this dogma movement of making movies with all these 15 rows of constraint that you have to hold the camera in your hand and you cannot use artificial lighting, that created wonderful movies. In science, it's not that clear if there is an equivalent of self-imposed constraints that unleash creativity. I wanted to ask you if you can come up with examples beyond, your dean cutting by half the budget of your department and you having to come up of ways of keeping working. So that's one question. And then I had another idea that I didn't hear here is the connection between creativity and communication skills. All of us, besides being researchers, we teach, and we know what it means explaining our ideas or explaining in a party to some friend what you are doing and trying to find different ways or different words or ideas. And I found that the process of that unleashes in you new ideas by trying to come up and formulate what you are doing in different things. I have the limiting experience. I work, besides my day job as physicist, I advise productions of theater with themes connected to science through a foundation that stimulates that. So sometimes I have to go to a company with people who start by telling me how much they hate science, which in the US is something very typical to hear. They are actors, but they are eager to listen and to learn, and you have to discover how to tell them things, not using all our tools and the formulas, but even to the extreme. I discovered that, for example, my body gestures have to change, because I was used to tell my students, well, this function grows, and they ask me, what do you mean when you move your hand? What are you trying to tell me when you move your hand to the right? So that you need to find completely different ways of expressing your ideas, and that, I believe, is an important element of creativity. I wanted to add that and ask the question.
Okay, I will be quick, but you know the winter workshop in complex system. Probably many of you did it. I was in the first one, and in that one we did an exercise that was very fun. We put keywords in a bag, and then we threw out 3 keywords. And for my group, the keywords were fear, spaghetti, and religion. And we had to come out with a research project on these 3. And this seems stupid, but it's very similar to what happens with grants. And so, basically in 2-3 hours, we had to propose a research project. This was one example of a creative exercise that we did.
When I was very young, we didn't have any money for a lab in Uruguay, and I'm a physicist, and I still remember a very creative, I didn't do it, I'm useless in the lab, but experiment we designed to study relative movement. So we have a CD that was going like this, and a pen going like this, and you have linear movement. I don't know, I think the lack of money forced us to find a way, and I think this COVID issue triggers creativity. And I think I'm quite sure you will all found solutions to do things you wanted to do under very difficult conditions. And that forces creativity, you know? I think I was doing many creative things, but on totally different things. I have never cooked in my life and end up doing cooking. I wish I could cook it again. I enjoy that part, you know? And I found it interesting.
I would like to respond to your second question about the communication. I usually try to separate thinking process and communication when I want to come up with something new, because trying to translate the idea into the written words or some kind of visuals, that always puts a limitation to the ideas that are freely floating. So until I get really interesting ideas, you know, to my mind, I usually do not talk to people or try to convince people. It's actually, I guess, you are Italian, I'm Japanese. Japanese hate people, okay? So communication actually kills your idea, so I want to lock myself in, you know, the ideal environment to be, I'm gonna be arrested in the jail. Nobody is seeing me, I have the 24 hours, that would be the ideal situation for me. Once you get the idea crystallized, then you start working on how to be creative in communicating that. That's a separate thing, in my opinion.
There is a line now, no, that it's called creative scientific writing. I don't know if you know this line of communicating, that well can be a way to write in a different way and to communicate in a different way. And I think that there are now so many production that you are lost, no, in all the production of research that there is, and it should be nice that you can read different things in different ways. For me, it should be nice to learn reading things that are written more from the heart. I don't know, you know, something that you read and you are enjoying what you are reading. For me, it will be nice that our academic will be like that.
More questions, especially from maybe young researchers? No, I mean, to inspire. I mean, because maybe they just don't want to say something.
So, thank you very much. I think I want a piece of advice, because I have been getting mixed feelings or mixed suggestions, I think. So, you advise us to pursue creative and also follow the trends at the same time, because it's kind of what you said, you should do it. But on the other hand, you are saying as well that as postdoc you should follow the trend. And so I come from I do a bit of science of innovation and science of science, and I wanted to get if I as a postdoc should go as more exploration in what is there, for finding my place, but not be that creative in my research, or I should do both, but trying to get like my creative idea and pursue that, or just be explorative, and then when I'm more senior, like you are in that moment, try to be creative. So it's like a temporality in the creative career or something like that.
I think it depends on your career goals. So do you want to get a highly prestigious research career, or you just want to pay your bills?
Tell us for both scenarios, because I think people want different things.
So, you know, depending on what you want to achieve, you can strategize, because it's academia thing. It's a real thing. So you need to find out what's the best way to get to some prestigious institution. It really depends on the countries. But if you just want to secure a job, as long as you can teach computer programming, mathematics, or data science, machine learning, you will find a job somewhere. So yeah, at least up to now. I don't know what's going to happen. So if you are comfortable, getting a teaching job, that's exactly what I did. After the postdoc, I first get the job in some small university, teaching university in Japan. That was the fantastic experience for me. So you don't have to strategize how to get to that journal. No, you can just do whatever you want to do. Yeah, and then the different story actually gives you the very strategized approach. You need to find this co-author. You need to get a published paper together with him or her. So that's a very different story. So you need to focus on what you want to achieve. My recommendation, get a teaching job. That makes you happy. And my wife and my kids happy also.
It's again a matter of risk. So like if you find like a field, like my case was transportation, and this is something you become good at doing, and you can understand what is wrong by other people work, increment on this, and perhaps sometimes you just go around and find out this is a good idea, and you make a more impactful work. Is a steady growth that can get there more, is less, more similar to noise in your path. Or you can have, an example normally is Maximilian Schick, I don't know who knows him, but he's just a guy who was with a PhD in arts and started learning how to use a database, and then started collaborating with Barabasi and invented basically the data-driven analysis of art. And then after the PhD, he got the position as professor because he was the only one in the world doing it. So, but yeah, there are not a lot of these stories like this.
More or less, you think the same, no? That, I think you have always to be open to what happens, no? And then you can have a name and go there, but if in the way you have to be open because maybe there are some ways that are out of that goal that gives you to another more interesting point. So.
Yes, I fully agree. I mean, one has some goal, but it has to pay attention to other things that come up because maybe those are creative solutions that we hadn't thought before, no? But I think I want to pick up on being happy. I think it's much easier to be creative if you're happier. And of course, I pick up with you. Of course, stress is sometimes goes against happiness, right? And then it seems to be go against creativity. I think we really need to learn to manage stress, okay? But there is a positive aspect of stress, which is the one that pushes us to find new solutions, go over obstacles. But, I mean, stress is not necessarily bad. If you don't have any stress, there is no force to push you, you know? In physics, we believe in force that pushes you to, you need to learn to manage this, of course. Keeping your level of happiness that allows you, it's very difficult to be creative if you're depressed. That is kind of obvious, right?
On this, I can suggest a TED Talk is called The Happy Secret of Good Life or something like this, but we can look at it. And basically it says that, it recommends that you shouldn't be looking for happiness in your work. So if I work well, so I will be happy, because this makes the cycle not working. You should be happy, so you will be productive and creative. So you should put happiness before, and once you are happy with your life, creativity will happen. If you wait for being satisfied by your work by itself, this will not create creativity.
But be used to deal with stress. Stress is part of your life all the time. It's always there. And also another thing, we know never have enough time. For sure. That is also another thing that you need to learn. Be creative really fast, because time runs out.
More questions from the audience, perhaps?
Well, my question relates to like powerful in power dynamics by disciplines. and how we are moving from, like we are seeing more a movement from arts and sciences to be creative, like towards computer science, but we are not seeing the same way around of like from computer science moving to arts and social sciences. And for us being young and researchers and this thing of like the stress and the pressure, because yeah, we want to be accepted by the communities. Like my question would be, how do you think for us it's easier to bring this creativity or interdisciplinarity if it's not just publishing papers, like creating arts media, creating more performances? How do you think for us would be easier that the community accepts us as a way to show research, as a way to like, also not just for the paper oriented, but also for the way of like communication science? Do you think it's possible somehow?
Well, I have explained that not in the talk that at the moment what is appreciated is the papers, and that they have to follow very strict rules. So you have to do that. I think it's what you have to do. At the same time, of course, you can do other things for being more recognized in your field, and then here you can put your creativity to do other things, or maybe collaborating with an artist, with, I don't know, with friends, you can call. But it's true that for getting a position, you will have to follow the rules. For this reason, no, I was telling that academia kills creativity because you have to follow that rules. But at the same time, you can be creative, of course, complementing this way of communicating with other ways.
I have something to add, actually. So a couple years ago, there was an exhibition. It was an art exhibition by Albert Laszlo Barabashi, who made artwork out of network visualization. So I think if you can maybe find a way to visualize your science in a very creative or artful way, that could be one avenue that probably would be, at least to some extent, appreciated also in academia.
Talks. Come on, we are here. We spent hours listening to people trying to explain science. And I believe that is a great form of expressing exactly the way you want your science. You have 10 minutes, 12 minutes, and you can add memes, you can add jokes, you can make animations, whatever. That is your moment. My only rule is you're not allowed to be boring. For the rest, you can do whatever you want.
So we are always constantly under pressure coming from society or industry, right? So there is a huge push to move into more very applied area, like a computer science, data science. Those are the areas that many students are moving. And but I think, we should never lose the interest in that kind of art, creative activities as a human being. So my recommendation is just go wherever you can, like a business maybe, or computer science, data science. Go there and then do the actual creative stuff under the disguise. So that's way that we can actually spread more of the creative minds to the many different applied fields. And once most of us do that in the more traditional disciplines, things will change in the next 10 years, 20 years. So please do not give up. Yeah.
I actually have another question. Like, in your experience with your students, your PhD students, your postdocs, maybe it changes. Ricardo was mentioning before, like maybe with the master students, you do the crazy stuff, but I don't know, what is your approach with the other students, your students, to, I don't know, foster creativity, or maybe make them free to do kind of what they really want to do and come up with their project, or instead you being controlling? And I don't know, there are different, does it change with the person? I don't know, what is your approach towards this problem?
It depends on the student. You know, some students need that you guide them so much that you see that you can ask them to yeah, to go out of the most used or to be very creative, because then they are lost, no? And some others are the contrary, that they have so much creativity, you know, maybe you can guide them a little bit more. And so I think there is not an answer in that. I think you have to be aware of which person are you working with, and see how you can help. No, and your work is changing depending on the person that you are guiding. And this is my experience.
Adding a bit more detail, I saw research on a graph, if you want. On one side, you have basically how much competence this person has, so how much he can understand of the problem he has or she has to tackle. And the other, how much there is the desire of acquiring the vision and looking very far away. If someone has a lot of competence and want to see far away, that is of course perfect. It's your postdoc that does everything alone. And if someone who has not competence but want to see far away, is a lot of effort to teach to this person. And there are also people who really just want to do their stuff and enjoy doing the code, and they just don't really need to be seeing the vision, and they are more applicative. The secret for me is quoting, in this case, Ancho Sánchez, because I like to quote people that teach me stuff, is allow them to surprise you. So you shouldn't put like a line and say, go from here to here, but you should give a direction and hope that they jump in a different path than what you saw before.
This is very interesting what you see. In my classes, not my doctoral students, no, I'm talking about my classes of dancing with the degree students. I tell them this, no, that if the students don't surprise you, it's because you are doing something wrong, because you are not open to that. No? If you are guiding them so much and the answers are the answers that you think before that they are going to answer, you are doing something wrong.
Okay, I'm not that easy to surprise. So I find that I tend to foresee a lot, imagine many different things, so I find that a bit difficult for them to surprise me. But I try to balance between giving them a lot of freedom, but at the same time doing my job, which is to supervise, okay? So when I was younger, I was very strict, supervision and guide them, and now I think I would like not to do my job and just let them do whatever they want, and whatever it is, no? But I have to do my job. I'm being paid for that, so I have to somehow try to. So I like to give them freedom, but I'm not that sure that it's that easy to surprise. Because, you know, once you get some degree of experience, you know, it's difficult to be surprised, right? I don't know. But yes, I try to give them as much freedom as I can within trying to control. Maybe that's the word. I don't know, it's the control or guide. I try not to interfere, but at the same time, I think the student needs, that's why it has a supervisor. Otherwise, it would be an independent researcher, but I'm supposed to try to give that. And it's a lot of work. To be honest, it's a lot of work.
Do I need to answer?
If you want to. Or maybe there is another question.
Yeah, I mean, answering this question, actually, they forced me to review how terrible I am as an advisor. So I always tell students, do not read papers. Do not read the papers. Yeah. And then just think and what you are interested in. And that's completely opposite of what Carlotta mentioned. And then most likely they're going to have a struggle, and then they have no idea, because many students actually have their kind of implicit belief, answer must be somewhere. No. Right? If answer is somewhere online or ChatGPT knows the answer, you are not doing a PhD. So that's something that I keep telling at the very beginning. Many students have an allergic reaction to it, and that's kind of good litmus paper, you know, whether or not they should continue or not. So, as I said, I'm a terrible advisor, but I forced it everybody, yeah.
I mean, there might be several answers, right?
But if student came up with the answer, and that is already published like 5 years ago by someone, that's a great thing. Student came up with the answer, but themselves, great. And then they can move on to another project.
Regretfully, we have to bring it to an end now, so I'm wondering if you have any final remarks, something you want us to take away.
Yeah, just one warning. Please be aware of the survivor bias. Here, all the survivors, whatever we said, may not apply to you, so be mindful and trust your own judgment.
I visited years ago a studio of an artist, and this guy in the artist had in this wall a sentence that was, "You are creative, you can do better." So, and I added at the beginning, it is what it is. So, yes, it is what it is. I love that sentence. I strongly believe on it is what it is. But you are creative, and you can do better.
I believe said to someone else this a few days ago, but Hemingway said, write drunk, revise sober. And I believe it was you that then answered, yeah, Hemingway actually threw away 90% of the pages he was writing. So you should be aware that write drunk means no judgment. Revise sober, it means then you have to be critical and understand that 90% of your work will be thrown away.
It's only that I think there is no one way, to be creative. It depends on each person, and so you have to find your own way to be creative, following the things that you like, the things that you have skills to do that, and with that, yeah, you can find your way to be creative, and no one can tell you how to be creative. And only last thing is that in Twitter, a man in Barcelona has invited us to make the same in Barcelona, to Chris and me. And I think they will have to put a ring or something, no? A funny ring, not a bad ring.
I would suggest in that case to invite the Guimera, that is one of the most original researchers I know. Or, no, you have a few other researchers that are super creative from in Barcelona and in Tarragona, Alex Arenas. So you have other people that are part of.
I think A and no A can be both true. Okay, so I really think that's why I ask you: is there a solution? There might be several solutions, and God knows how you compare them, So I think maybe a possibility is to put a pool in the app, this app that we are learning to use. After this discussion, you can vote. Is academia killing creativity, or not, or both, or you don't want to think? That doesn't mean you're right or I'm right. It's not. I'm not putting it in that way. I think it's like I'm used to quantum physics, and you can be a particle and a wave and God knows what. So it's like complementary, okay? So I think but maybe we can put this and see what people really think. And you are allowed to more than one answer. That's what I'm trying to say. There doesn't need to be just one answer.
Yes, definitely, yes. Let's thank all the panelists. Thank you all for staying up this late. I hope you enjoyed it. Let's go.